Benvenuto a Lisbona e all'Istituto Amaro da Costa, professore Giovanni Maddalena. Dopo il ritorno al portoghese, per o piano. Temos hoje connosco o professor Giovanni Maddalena, que é professor de Filosofia na Universidade de Molise. Também foi Fulbright Research Scholar com o projeto Synthetic Reasoning Pragmatic View. É doutorado em Filosofia e Ciências Humanas pela Universidade de Roma e é um colaborador ativo e residente na Fondazione de Gasperi, que é uma das nossas congêneres sob o European People's, o Partido Popular Europeu e a Fundação Wilfred Martin Center. O professor Giovanni Maddalena vem falar-nos hoje sobre o referendo de 4 de dezembro em Itália, que está a assumir proporções muito inusitadas, nomeadamente quanto à incerteza dos resultados, e é um referendo muito importante sobre a alteração do sistema político italiano. As conclusões e as decisões que vierem a resultar do resultado do referendo transformarão certamente a Itália nos anos futuros, e com isso também terá também certamente um efeito em toda a Europa. Vamos então ouvir o professor Giovanni Maddalena, para quem eu peço que venha aqui para estar.
Thank you, Luis, and thank you everybody for being here. And I'm sorry I cannot speak Portuguese, and I can speak Spanish, but not Portuguese, and it's so fast. But I'm so glad to be here in any case, even if I don't know the language, because we are always working together with the Gasperi Foundation and the Institute Amaro da Costa. And therefore, I'll be glad to tell you what I know about the referendum and what is going on. Then I think, as we said last night, that I can talk for 20 minutes and then we can exchange our ideas. You have I prepare slides and you have them. It's only to say the main points very quickly. So what is at stake? Well, we'll vote on the 4th of December, and this vote, I would like to say at the beginning that it's something huge for our political people, but not for the people. I mean, the people probably at this point, after 2 months of day-by-day government advertisements and opponents' advertisements as well, at this day they are estimating that only 50% of Italians will be voting in the referendum. I mean, nobody cares in the streets. That's the first thing I want to say, and you will see why. Because yes, the proposal is the law, so it was already accepted by the two chambers, but only with the majority. If you want to change the constitution in Italy and not to go to a referendum, you have to change it with the 75% of the parliament of deputies and senators, and this is not the case. I mean, it was voted by a majority, as it was the proposed reformed constitution in 2006 by the Berlusconi government, and in that case we had a referendum and the constitution, the reform wasn't approved. And so what is this proposal? The proposal is to change two big points of the Constitution. This is, of course, the short version, because we are going to vote on 47 articles of the change of 47 articles in the Constitution. So, big issue also this one, because then the question is, do you agree in cutting the stipends to politicians? Yes or no? So it is an unfair question, and there was a big issue also about that. But in any case, the two main points are the change of perfect bicameralism and the regional competencies. Now, what does it mean? That the proposal is to change. In Italy, we have two chambers or houses: the House of Representatives and the House and the Senate. And at this point, we have to pass every single law in both houses, and any change which is made in one of the houses, also a comma, means that the law has to go back to the first chamber and then to go back to the Senate. And this is which is called navetta, small board. The small boat. It is something that goes back and forth for a while, and so it is a long procedure. And the proposal is to abolish the mandatory passage through the Senate. So, this is, I will say later on, but this is also the main point in favor of the reform, because it will be faster to approve a law. I put that there are some historical reasons why Italy has this system. This is, of course, because we had fascism, and we didn't want anybody to become a dictator another time. So this is a way in which in Italy this has always been a problem, because the government doesn't have so much power. The chambers have a lot of power, and the two chambers are elected with different systems, so that the Senate is really the representative of regions. And having this navetta, the small boat of law, is going back and forth, it's almost impossible to have a very decisionist government, because the government proposes the law, but even if they have a vast majority, the Senate, above all, can always slow down the process if they want to. So it's this was done on purpose in order to avoid any form of anti-democratic government. And of course, it was since the Italian constitution was a compromise between a strong communist party, a strong Catholic party, and a small but fighting liberal party. So that was the solution. The great compromise was to keep everything as stable as possible in the parliament. And because, of course, Catholics were really scared about communists going to the power and doing something anti-democratic, and communists didn't want Catholics to become dependence of the Vatican. So that was the idea. So everybody was like that. And and so the problem, as I say, is that the law procedure is very slow, and governments, as everybody knows in Europe, are very unstable, meaning that we change them a lot, and that has always been our history. This is, I put that is only alleged because there is something to say that when a government really wants a law, they can do it. For example, last year, the government really wanted the law about the gay union, the civil union for gay marriage, not really marriage, but something similar. The law was made in 45 days. So this is something they can do, and they have another system, which is what is really ruling Italy at this point, which is that the government can always state a law by doing what we call a decreto, a decree, decreto. And they have to, so that means that a decreto is immediately a law, but then they have 60 days to transform it in a law in the parliament. So we have something like that. But what we always complained in the last 30 years is that governments are ruling by decretos all the time. They are doing that continuously. So it is true that this is the issue, and this is the problem, I mean the technical problem. And so the new Senate, as they accepted it in the votation in the two chambers, is that the new Senate cuts down the numbers of senators from 315 to 100, and those 100 are mainly mayors of the cities and regional councillors. They will not be paid anymore, and they do that without expenses for the community. And the point is that the new Senate will not vote, there is a mistake, but will not vote for accepting the government. So this is the main difference, what we call the fiducia, that the government has to present itself and to be accepted both by both houses, and this is not going to work any longer because only the Chamber of Representatives will vote for the fiducia. And the new Senate will give only advices and proposals on regular laws. So the Senate will not vote anymore. And in the other slide, you have our complication, because we are Italians, as you know, and so we cannot do one thing at a time, and without complicating things too much. And so we did something at the same time. The government reformed the system of election, and this is a huge problem, because with this kind of law, which is an ordinary law, so it can be changed any time, but this is the law with which we are voting next time. Well, in this law there will be 2 rounds, and at the second round there will be a ballot between the two first parties, the two most voted parties, and then the party which wins the ballot, even by 1 vote, will have the majority of the 55% of the deputies in the House of Representatives, and of course we won't have at that point any other house for voting things. So, and also the heads of the lists for the elections will be decided by parties, and that means that the secretaries of the parties will decide who are the first names, and so who are those who will be elected. And yes, of course, the combination of all of these means that the party at this moment, for example, Grillo five-star movement would win the election if they were right now, and at the ballot, and so we'll have 20% of Italians deciding everything. I mean, in the one chamber, deciding everything, and this is a big issue. Of course, this is not. We are not voting on this, but this is something which is in the middle, and you cannot take it out because it is something which is crucial at this point. The adversaries of the constitutional reform are saying, well, we are giving the country to Grillo. And of course, the proponents of the constitution, of the reform, the constitution, are saying, well, we are not voting on this, and we are going to change this electoral law immediately. Renzi already put a committee for changing that, but but in Italy, something in Italy we have a say which says that nothing is so stable as something which is temporal. If something is temporary, sure it will stay, and this is the complication. So, what are the considerations on this first issue, which is what we call the abolition of the Senate, even though it's not an abolition, it is a change. So those who are proposing that, so the actual government, which is made by the Democratic Party, center-left, and the new center-right, which is a split fraction of the former Berlusconi's party, Forza Italia, or Partito della Libertà. And but really a small one. We are talking. The Democratic Party is the 30%, and the new center-right party is the 3%. So we are not talking about the same animals. And so what the proponents of the Constitution says is that the average time for passing a law will go down from 1 year, almost 2 years, to 40 days, which is, I guess, it's mostly true. I mean, maybe not 40 days, and because these 563 days as average is not even the worst that we had. So it's probably true. This process is very fast. And government laws will have a guarantee in the new constitution to pass in 75 days. This is mandatory. So they are saying, the proponents are saying, so we won't need any longer the system of the decrees, the decretos, and we'll have a regular system to do that, and so we can be more decisive. This is the idea. Also, there is something in the new constitution. There is a change in the referendum system, so that because the last few referendums, I think most 80% of our referendums fail because they have to reach the 50% plus one vote of voters, and instead with this change of constitution, they will need only the 50% of plus one of voter of last elections. So it means that it changes a lot. So the referendum will be more easy to use. I mean, it's not like now. And of course, those who are against the reform are saying that it is a limitation of democracy, because one house elected with this kind of electoral law will rule, and at this point one party will rule without opposition for 5 years, and this is of course something which is against the general idea that we don't want a strong government. And but of course what the government says is that time changed, and there is no problem of authoritarian dictators in at least not in Italy. And the other argument against the reform is that the Senate was representing minorities and territories, and this will be cut down because the Senate will not be a place for decisions anymore. And finally, of course, there is a huge concern by minorities about ethical laws and decisions on war, which are not exception, and so one house will decide about ethical laws and war. So the 20% of citizens will decide about everything. I'm almost done, as promised. And so very quickly, the regional competencies. This is the other thing which is changing. And so the state will take back some legislation, because we have regions, as you know, Piedmont, Lombardy, and so on. And in 2001, with a left government, we had what we called like a devolution to regions, which became very, very important and very powerful. And so it's true, even in this case, it's true that they didn't work, well, they worked as little states. So the devolution was a difficult one. So it was really complicated. So the state is taking back something that is the legislation on professions and communications, civil guards, energies, infrastructures, airports, so almost everything. And so people who are sustaining the reform are saying that this is good because regions failed and they became another bureaucracy between the bureaucracy of the state and the bureaucracy and the citizen, which, as you probably know, in Italy is already a problem. I mean, bureaucracy is really complicated in Italy, and it's always been an issue to overcome the bureaucracy. And in any field, we know that it's easier to. I mean, if you know the right person, you can get through. This is not exactly as the way in which it should be. So people who are in favor of the reform are saying that okay, let's get rid at least of one level of of bureaucracy, and people who are contrary to that are saying that yes, it's true, but there was a principle of subsidiarity, which was advocated above all by the Lega Nord and the Catholics, so that the state is not in charge of everything on territories, and so they say, yes, it's true, the regions probably failed, but we are going back, we are renouncing to a good idea, a good principle, so we are going back to the 70s. And so this is the situation, and I hope I gave a good picture of the idea. So we have to change those two things, and there are good arguments in favor and good arguments against. But as I said at the beginning, people do not care at all. I mean, so at the beginning, Renzi, who is a communicator and who is I think he's a great communicator. At the beginning he said, well, you are voting on myself and my government. This is something which can appeal to passions in politics. But then they decided, at least his staff decided, that this was a bad move because we have to talk about the real thing. And so at the moment, the situation is that the government is really pushing the reform, and Renzi is trying not to personalize the referendum, but he's not doing that seriously. I mean, he's a good communicator, so he knows he has to put something personal, otherwise people are not going to vote. Well, and on the other side, people who are against Renzi and the government are really going to vote, and because they don't care as well about the constitution, but they are saying, okay, let's send him home. This is the message, and so this is our situation. I would like to conclude by saying that the Gasperi Foundation has a strong position about that, but it's not true, because we are really split also in our foundation, because it's really, I mean, there are different issues in here. There are political issues on the Renzi government, and another political, and there are constitutional issues, and they are mixed up. What I think, and I said also before in the small video I made, just because I don't want to say it is just like that, but I think that politically speaking, what's going to happen is that if the yes wins, Renzi's idea to have a big central bloc made of the Democratic Party plus new center-right will be strengthened, and so I think that will be the future idea of the center-right. Also, even though we don't really know, because Berlusconi has always 10% of votes, even though he's not doing anything anymore. So it's important to see what happens after Berlusconi, if there is an after Berlusconi. And if the no wins, I think we are going back to a stronger center-right and stronger center-left, meaning that the right and the left will take more power. But it is absolutely unknown. I mean, we know what happens if the yes wins. We don't know what happens with if the no wins. Possibly, as Renzi said, well, maybe nothing happens. And that's his conclusion. I think I have said everything, and if you want to ask questions,